Hola, Yinzers. Mi nombre es Abraham Klein. Hello, Yinzers. My name is Abraham Klein. I tried to say it in Spanish. Don't know if I said it correctly. But I said it because, for those of you who don't know, this past month, since September 15th, has been his National Hispanic Heritage Month. And as of the 15th of this month, it'll be the end. So we have a couple more days to celebrate it, right? Um, but yeah, I want to spend the next couple minutes and just share with you a little bit about my own Hispanic heritage. And my hope is that you would, maybe in the comments section below, tell us a little bit about your Hispanic heritage if you happen to have any. Now, yes, I understand my last name's Klein. That would be from my dad's side of the family. They're, I believe, like German, Dutch. But on my mother's side is where my Hispanic heritage comes from. My great grandfather is the one who came here to the United States. He was born around 1861 or 62. What I found with a lot of these documents is there's some conflicting data. But his father, which is the first ancestor that I'm aware of, was his father, my great great grandfather. His name was Michael Serra. And the only thing I know about him is that his name was Michael Serra and that he was born in Cuba. But that's all I know about him so far. I'm hoping to maybe find out some more stuff later. But my great grandfather is the one I've learned a little bit more about. As I said, he was born around 1861, 1862. Somewhere in Havana, Cuba, possibly. There's also another document, according to his wet marriage certificate, says he was possibly born in St. Thomas, which is now part of the West Indies, the Virgin Islands down there. But he was Cuban, and somewhere around 14 years old, he sailed the ocean blue to the United States. Now, I've not been able to find a ship that he came in on, or any naturalization papers, which is interesting because he always said he was a naturalized citizen, but I have no proof of it. So take that as you will. Anyway, so he came to the United States. From what I know, he lived in New York for a period of time, and at some point he met my great grandmother. My great grandmother was actually from Ireland. Her father came from England. So, and her mother was born in Ireland. Anyway, all that said, so eventually my great grandfather married my great grandmother, obviously. But they didn't get married in New York. They apparently got married in Pittsburgh. They got married at somewhere around Laycock Street at at the St. Peter's Catholic Church, and that would have been around 1890. And so then after that, my excuse me, they moved to Vandergrift after having two children. That would have been my Uncle George and my Aunt Mary. Then they moved to Vandergrift Heights at the time. At least that part of Vandergrift was Vandergrift Heights, where he owned a restaurant for a period of time. Eventually, he sold it, and they possibly lived in Ford City, possibly lived a couple other places. Eventually, they settled down in Homer City. However, before that, my grandfather, Christopher Joseph Serra, was born. By the way, my great grandfather's name was Joseph Serra. And the thing about their name, Serra, is although today it's spelled Sarra, many times I looked and saw documents where it was spelled Serra, Sarri, Serre, and of course Sarra. But so many different ways that it was spelled, and I'm sure if you've done any family history, you've probably run into the same problem. So yeah, my grandfather was born in Vandergrift. They eventually moved to Homer City, Pennsylvania, where they pretty much spent the remainder of their days. During that time, my great grandfather was a laborer. He was a cook. He worked in the mines. He worked at an incubator factory where they made egg incubators for chickens and stuff like that. Thing about it, my great grandmother, she actually passed away from the flu in 1919 during that time when, the big influenza outbreak was going on. And tragically, a couple years before that, my great uncle George, he died of tuberculosis, which I've heard killed like 15% of the entire world's population. But yeah, he passed away when he was only 20 years old. So they definitely lived through hard times, or obviously poor. But it's interesting because my great grandfather, during the time that he lived, he owned lots of land. He owned a business at one point, um, and did some pretty significant things during his time. Eventually, he passed away from what they called myocarditis, chronic myocarditis, which is some sort of heart problem. And he passed away at the age of around 67 in the year 1928. And then, of course, there was my grandfather, my grandfather Christopher. Also, by the way, they had a couple other children. They had William and Wilbur, who were twins, even though their birth dates are like a couple months apart, which we don't know how that worked. And then there was my great aunt Rosella, who was born. And of course, they all went off and had families of their own. And eventually, as I said, my grandfather married my grandma. Her name was Olive, and they had 6 children of their own. I believe they would have had 8 had they all lived. But out of them, my mother, Deborah, married my father Kenneth, and here I am. So, so that's sort of my Hispanic heritage from Cuba, and I'm thankful for the heritage that I have. Thankful that they were willing to take the chance and work hard and live through, from what I've learned, very tough times to try to establish a life for future generations down the road. And again, I'm very thankful for that, and very thankful for my Hispanic heritage, as well as all my different nationalities' heritage. But of course, for this month, thankful for my Hispanic heritage. As I said, if you are someone of Hispanic heritage and you'd like to share a little bit about your family's history, why don't you tell us a little bit about it in the comments. And that's about it. If you like this video, please like, share, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And you guys have a great day in Spanish. Bye.